Alright, y'all. Back again. Car video. Outside the job. Also got some laundry I gotta do when I get off work. Anywho, so I told y'all I was gonna do this video about the Lonzo Paul George deal. And I had to go look up the article that had it on there. I don't know what the fuck that was. And I was sitting there looking at this shit and I was like, that's why I forgot about this thing, because it was garbage. For those of you who don't know, there was an article that came out. It was talking about Lonzo being traded to the Clip for Paul George. And I was sitting there and I was just like, when I first heard it, I was like, okay, there's going to be some other moving parts in there. It's probably either going to be a Lou Williams or Patrick Beverly swap. More than likely Pat Bev, because Lonzo and him are similar as far as some of the things that they do. They overlap. And Lou would probably be a better mentor offensively, as what the point guard is supposed to do, to score. And, you know, then I was thinking, okay, Paul George would probably come over and make the contracts match, you know, obviously Pat Bev. And, you know, then that way at least they have a point guard kind of in New Orleans. I looked at the shit. It's straight up Paul George for JJ Redick, Darius Miller, Lonzo, next year's first, and the first 2 years after that from the Lakers. And I'm sitting there like, what? Okay. First of all, Pelicans already have Paul George. You know? It's called Brandon Ingram. I know he doesn't play defense like him, but offensively, they're pretty similar as far as players is concerned. Can score at all three levels, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, defensively, he's not Paul George, not even close, but you already have Paul George. And what does Paul George do for the Pelicans exactly? Like, I don't, like, if you were going to say you're going to move B.I. to point guard, which, and you, or you're going to move him to shoot guard, then okay, B.I., Paul George, Zion. But now you lose Lonzo. And so now you have to go get a point guard. And you can't just get any point guard now. You got to get an experienced point guard. Because if you get a rookie don't know how to play the game. Just don't. Nickeil Alexander-Walker don't have enough experience to run point guard, you know, on those minutes for that team. He's not there yet. You know, so now they got to go get a point guard. And now you got to probably see who's available as a free agent or make some trades with some pieces you have. And it's like, for what? What's the point? Like, what's the point? Like, you don't fix the issues of the Pels, which is forward depth, because you're going to end up having to play all three as starter, Zion, Paul George, and B.I., and you still don't have a center. And if you claim that if you don't like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, then you're going to need a backup ball handler anyway. Now, you can have Pat Bev out there, and that's great and everything, but it's like, he don't run offenses. That's not his thing. So it's like, somebody has to dictate the ball. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, I don't get, okay, so check this out. You only get Paul George for 1 year, then he falls off if he chooses not to re-up. Okay, so now what? You gave away your future potential all-star point guard or point guard that fits the system, and you got Pat Bev plus whoever else and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I'm not sure what Pat Bev contract looked like, but just like, I don't get that. I mean, you know, Pat Bev off the bench for that team would be great, and he would offer, you know, mentality and presence and that energy that teams need. He's great, but to say, oh, you got to run this and distribute, that's not his job. That is what his skill set's for. So I don't get that. If you're saying we're going to trade BI for Paul George, I would be more okay with that because they're comparable players, except, let's just be honest, Paul George is just better. He's older, but he's better. And I could accept you saying we're getting rid of BI for Paul George. I would be completely okay with it. I wouldn't like it because I'd rather keep the cheaper, younger player coming up with more growth than Paul George, who's proven to not be able to lead a team, even though he kind of led the Pacers back before that injury. And I think that injury is still hurting him to this day, but we'll get into that in another video. Okay, so for the Pels, it's just like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And that's a whole lot of money, for 1 year. I mean, if that's the case, you don't need to trade Drew. If you're going to do that, you keep Drew. You see what I'm saying? And so, okay. Now to the Clipper side. So, I can see them using JJ off the bench. Obviously, Lonzo fills every hole that they need at that guard position, basically. If you think about it, he's kind of like an in-betweener of Lou and Pat Bev. He's taller than both. He's stronger than both. More length than both. He's a better three-point shooter, I think, than Lou. I'm going to have to go check that. Don't quote me on that. He just don't have the versatile offensive game that Lou has. That's really his only shortcoming. But he's a superior passer and rebounder than both of them. Much higher IQ. He can switch multiple positions better than they can. Like, Lonzo covers a lot of holes in that team. If they could somehow get Lonzo and not lose Paul George, the Clippers are going to be a monster to deal with. But, so they have to ship out Paul George. So now you got Kawhi by himself. Last year of his contract, I believe, or he can opt out. That was the thing. Him and Paul George can opt out or opt in, right? So now, the whole reason he wanted to go there with help. He wanted to be in LA, but he didn't want to go to the Lakers, but he wanted help. So now, you get rid of Paul George, you might say, okay, fuck you. No more Paul George, right? And all those picks they sacrificed to get him. Okay. So, now what? Lonzo, Kawhi, Lou, can't remember the guy that they got from Zubac, and a couple other, Morris, Montrezl Harrell, I think, is a free agent or restricted free agent. I mean, that team can compete. Don't get me wrong, they can compete, but they're not winning the title. No way in hell they winning the title. And there's no way you get Kawhi back after this year. You just gave up the farm. And so you're going to be left with like Zoe and Zubac, and Montrez is looking like he don't even want to sign back with them anymore. So you may not have that. So it's like that team is going to be terrible. Like, it don't fix any of the freaking issues. Like, it just don't. Like, you would have to tell me, okay, you're trading Lonzo and Drew and sending both of them over there, and you're taking Pat Bev and maybe Lou Williams together and Paul George and sending them over to the Pels. And let's say you keep JJ in there too. Now it's kind of like you can make that work-ish for both teams, but it don't fix the issues for the Pels. The Pels actually come out losing that in the long run. But at least with Kawhi, you can say, okay, look, we got you Drew Holiday, who's a guaranteed number 2. He's not going to overstep his boundaries, and he's proven in the playoffs. You got Lonzo Ball as a point guard. Both of them can lock down the opposing best guard so you can save your legs, and they get the ball up to you, and they both are versatile. You can sit there, you can sell Kawhi on that, and now you can say, okay, Kawhi, you will be the alpha on this team, but your team is going to be built similar to how it was with the Raptors. You guys are going to be defensive monsters from 1 through 3, and you're going to be able to swap, and the thing is, you got Lonzo, who's about your size. If you don't want to guard some of the small forwards, he can pick up that slack for you. And he's gonna get you the ball. He's gonna get you the ball where you need it, and he can knock down shots. He's smart. He can play next to you. Drew has the complete offensive game. He's not gonna shoot it like Paul George, but he can attack for you, and he can take some pressure off of you offensively, and he can flex the guard if you need him to, and he can guard the best perimeter defender to save your legs. Now, if you got Montrez, you got a solid ass squad. You can present that to Kawhi, say, okay, what we lose in Paul George, we get in so much other areas, it'll make up for it, and you guys will work much more seemingly together. Now, will they beat the Lakers? No, but I find it very hard to say that team wouldn't be top 2 or 3 in the West, because defensively, you're not getting anything from your guards. Between, okay, who are you going to switch? You got Montrez, one of the Morris twins, I can't remember which one, Zoe, Drew, and Kawhi. Who do you attack? That's what I want. That would make so much more sense. For the Pels, they still don't win that situation, but you can say, okay, we got a combo of 2 guards. Maybe we could flip one of them for, who knows, a DJ Augustine or something like that, a George Hill maybe. You could maybe try to finesse a player from somebody like that and be like, okay, we'll be straight. But directly on paper, no, but you see what I did? I had to go and swap around the parts to make this shit work. And then you still have to, sell it. And again, Paul George is still probably going to leave at the end of the season. So, I don't see how that benefits you. That trade, first of all, that trade is garbage. The Clippers say no. If you're going to get Paul George, you got to come up with a lot more than 2 future firsts, JJ, Darius, and Zoe. I'm sorry. You just got to. Even if you were going to trade B.I., you would have to trade B.I. in picks or B.I. in, Melly. You're going to have to trade something else to get Paul George. Yes, I understand his performance wasn't that good, but Paul George is a proven commodity. With Paul George on your team, you can get to the playoffs. Period. That's proven. He did that all throughout his career in Indy. He even went to the conference finals and took LeBron to Game 7. The Heatles. He took them to Game 7 with Granger, Roy Hibbert, I believe it was David West, and George Hill. Those boys took LeBron 7 games with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade and the rest of the Heat in their prime. So he's a proven goddamn commodity. He just finished top 3 Defensive Player of the Year DPOY candidate and in the MVP conversation the year before or so with Russ. So he was injured last year. It hurt his year. You cannot, it's going to take more to get Paul George. Now, if they're just saying, look, we just need to get rid of the nigga, then fuck it, right? But they traded away 3 to 6 picks just to get him. So they gonna need value back. And that's not enough value. The people that made that article just what the fuck are you talking about, bro? It just don't benefit either team. And again, to make that work or make that worthwhile, you had to give up both of your starting guards for New Orleans. I'm just saying. And they not even get, they get Paul George back with that, which is great. But like I said, you already have Paul George and B.I. What does he do for them? Maybe, see, if this was Denver and you had Jokic who could pass and kind of be basically be point center or Ben Simmons or something, you can make that trade all day. And that works because now you got the system and the synergy, and you know how it works. Everybody can have their role. You can put B.I. on one side and Paul George on the other and just fish for mixed matches all game. And that'll work. Because Paul George can cook, B.I. can cook, and if they both get going, like, if they both get going and you got like Jokic or something that can feed them, or Ben Simmons, like, you don't have an answer for that. You cannot defend that. That's too much size and length and power on that team. That makes sense. But with the Pels and what they have, you got Zion and B.I. Zion still needs the ball fed to him right now. B.I. could go get his own. But everybody else on the team is going to be reliant on the point guard. Even if you got Paul George who can go get his own, they don't help Zion. So no, that trade is ludicrous. It's stupid. It's dumb. It's retarded. Whoever thought about this should be shot. Don't shoot motherfuckers. Please don't. I'm just joking, being facetious. But motherfucker need to be shot. Like, fuck? What kind of drugs we on? Like, goddamn, niggas. Like, I don't get... It frustrates the everlasting fuck out of me because, like I said, if we gonna trade players, let's make this shit like. I'm sorry if I'm going on a rant right now. I saw a motherfucker yesterday talking about Victor Oladipo for Drew is fair. What? This nigga ain't been able to play in like 2 years. But matter of fact, they need to give more. Because they were talking about Drew for Vic, like straight up and saying, oh, Vic is worth more than Drew. I'm like, what? Maybe if this was 2 years ago and this nigga was still healthy and he maybe just had a slightly off season, we could argue that. But hell no. Motherfucker, for Vic, you got to give up Vic and something else if you gonna get Drew. The fuck you mean? Like, this stupid, I don't get, like, when people be out here talking about trades and stuff, it's like, bruh, if you're gonna make the trade, it's gotta be fair for both teams, or at least try, unless you was like Brooklyn like a couple years ago when they just did whatever, you know? But it's like, what the fuck? Like, no, Drew is better. Drew is more proven right now. You know, Drew health-wise is going to be available. Vic ain't. I love Vic. Vic Oladipo is one of my favorite players. I love Vic. But to sit here and act like Vic value right now is on the same level, that nigga had like 12 points, 13 points a game last year, some shit like that. He barely played. He barely played the previous year. Like, there's no way. Like, you motherfuckers out here with these stupid-ass trade scenarios, like, I get it. And some Drew stands in the Pels piss me off because they overvalue Drew. And then you got people on other teams that undervalue Drew. It's like, if we could get dead set in the middle, we'd be just right. Drew is, if we're going to put this on a scale of 1 to 10 for stats, this is Drew. Drew offensively, 5 is average, 10 is superstar. Drew is like 7.5 offensively. Drew shooting is like 6.5. His defense is like 8.5, 9. You know, he's okay, if we're going to value Drew versus, let's say, Paul George shooting wise is like 8.5, 9. Paul George offensively is like 8.5, 9. Paul George defensively is like 8.5, 9. Like, there's levels to this. There's pure levels to this. Vic Oladipo right now might as well be all 6s or 5.5s. It's like across the board. You know, he don't have that value. People need to stop with this nonsense. Like, for real. I'm sorry, y'all, but that shit just like, I hate stupid-ass basketball takes. Because, like, okay, check this out, right? If Victor Oladipo was that damn good, why wouldn't you keep him? If Vic was that damn good, if he's that much better than Drew Holiday, why would you trade Drew Holiday? to him, or why would you accept Drew Holiday for him? Oh, we need Drew and we need Lonzo. Y'all got God damn, what's the motherfucking name from they got him, I can't remember his name. But they fleeced him from the Bucks. Y'all know who the hell I'm talking about. Y'all already got him. He's like 6'5". He's basically Lonzo Ball, but he's more prepared to score. He just don't have the intangibles and the peak that Lonzo's gonna have in those things. But it's like, do y'all think? Like, if Vic was that much better, you wouldn't trade him. You would request more. But Drew is like a fringe all-star. Like, when you go through what I just said, he's right there at the cusp. In the East, he'd be a perennial all-star at guard. He's just that good. But he can't do that in the West, number one, where he's not going to get notoriety. And two, he has no synergy and no place on this team going forward. But Vic can still fit on the Pacers. It's just Vic don't want to be there no more. He's sick of them. They pissed him off. He don't want to be there no more, so he want to go play for Miami. He want to go play for a hard-nosed team that's competing for championships. That's where he's at. So, like, I don't know, man. But look, I need to get up in here and go to work. This is one of my rants. I'm sorry, y'all. Actually, I'm not sorry. Fuck all that shit. Motherfuckers is dumbasses. Dumb the fuck asses. The nerve of these harlots. And yes, I said harlots because these some dumbass motherfuckers. I call male or female harlot. I don't give a fuck. Nerve of these goddamn harlots. This bullshit. I'm getting out of here. I'm here to work. Peace, y'all.